Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Patrick. I've got a slightly different video for you this week. A couple of days ago, I was interviewed by a new friend of mine. His name is Jonathan, but his artist and producer name is LEAO. I'll be sure to link up some of his work for you, but he approached me and asked me if he could interview me for a little project he's working on, and he was kind enough to allow me to share the video that he put together with all of you. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. I get to share a little bit of my personal story, where I came from, why I started playing music, what my average day looks like, my personal influences, the collaboration process, and we wrap the whole thing up with some advice for aspiring musicians like yourself. Hopefully you'll get some value out of this. The interview did get a little long, so I'm gonna put some timestamps in the description below so you can skip around the video and find the information that you're looking for. But guys, I hope you enjoy.
All right, so I'm here with Patrick Breen. You know, nice to meet you.
Likewise, man.
You could introduce yourself.
What's up? I'm Patrick.
So, tell me a little bit of what you do in the music industry.
So I am a recently signed artist. I work with an indie label here in New York. I'm also getting more into music production. I am, trying to showcase what I do using social media, and that's been great. I've met a ton of people. We met through social media, and I saw that as a huge opportunity, something that I could control, to get myself out there, to share what I'm doing, what I'm working on, songs, music ideas, all of that kind of stuff. And that's really been kind of the main thing that has brought me all of the things that I'm kind of doing right now. So I wouldn't go so far as to say that I identify myself as a social media influencer. I would still consider myself a songwriter and a music producer and a guitar player that utilizes social media to kind of get the word out about what I'm doing.
Cool. So, growing up, is this what you expected to be doing, or what did you want to do initially when you were growing up?
I was never one of those kids that had a vision for my life long term. I knew that I didn't really love school. Like most kids, I liked socializing and hanging out with my friends. I went through everything. I tried a lot of things as a kid, and props to my parents for just encouraging me to try sports and theater and what other weird stuff did I do? I don't know. I tried it all, and I played piano, and my mom got me a guitar when I was 14 maybe, and it sat around, it collected dust for a while, and when I got over that initial pain of picking up the guitar for the first time and developed some calluses and started to enjoy the instrument a little bit more, I think that really, it was always something that I enjoyed, but to be honest, music didn't really start to come into my mental picture as a potential career, or more so something that I just always wanted to be doing really until college. That was really when that happened. As a kid, I always loved music. I liked everything. I liked the music my parents listened to. I liked hip hop. I liked radio stuff even. I always loved music. I remember being super young when the first generation iPod came out, and had to have it, had to fill it with songs, and I loved it. I remember when pirating music was a thing. I loved that. I loved, BearShare and LimeWire and all that stuff. Yeah. I loved just having a collection of music. So the passion was always there, but the pursuit of that was more gradual, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say was the official, what drew you in officially to officially pursue music and kind of just take that step forward into, all right, I'm going to try this officially, I'm going to stick to it.
Yeah.
What was that? What drew you in?
It changes because, your hindsight is, it's so funny. You look back and you emphasize different things in your memory, right? And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine recently about this very thing, what drew you in? And I think in a weird way, and I don't know if this is just me looking at this aspect of it or if this is really what it was, but I think like the most self-aware answer I could give you is like, I loved the feeling of acceptance that I got from having a guitar around my neck and playing it. And like, it's really not an ego thing. Because it's easy. I've always been super cognizant of that and never wanted to be like egotistical about it and like, oh, look at, because I think the minute you start having that, like, life will humble you quick, and that I don't want anything to do with. I hate being embarrassed and stuff like that. But it was more of like, in high school I went to a prep school, and because I wasn't doing very well in middle school, and I think my parents knew like, okay, if he's gonna have any chance, we got to get him out of public school system where he's getting caught smoking pot with his friends and he's, you know, doing all this stuff, whatever. Like, and I really spent 4 years. I had friends. I wasn't like a loner or whatever, but I really truly feel like I spent 4 years just trying to fit in and trying to do whatever it took to make friends and to be accepted. And I wasn't anybody. I was a typical high school kid that, you know, I played lacrosse, I did theater, I played hockey. You know what I mean? Like, I was just doing anything to try to be accepted, right? Not exactly. Like, where is my role in all this? Where do I fit in? Where do I make sense, right? And all of that yearning, all of that searching kind of came to a head when, like, I got on stage with a guitar for the first time, and I was playing songs that I wrote with this band that I was in, and I was getting on stage and being vulnerable with something that I created, but it was like, oh, people actually don't hate this. There's like 100 people in this room, and like, this doesn't suck. I mean, look, I have video footage I can show you from the first concert I ever played in college, and you're like, okay, but like, okay, this doesn't suck. Like, I could improve on this. It clicked, and I had like, oh shoot, this is where I'm supposed to be. And look, I think, you know, as time goes on, I'm not in a band anymore, and that's what I thought I wanted to do. I'm not touring the country right now, and that's what I thought that I was maybe going to do, like, right out of college, right? But you take one step each day, and you kind of like figure out, okay, I know this much. I know that this is where I'm supposed to be, and I'm just going to keep showing up. So I think it's been, like I said, it's been like a gradual journey, but I just know that this is my place in all of it. You know what I mean?
So how long have you been like producing, playing guitar, just in the industry doing what you do now?
It's kind of taken it's had a couple of different incarnations, I guess. So when I first started doing my thing and being a solo artist, right, I really had nothing. I was putting some songs out on the internet, and a friend shared my music with a producer that he knows from Los Angeles. And he said, I think what you're doing is cool. I think the songs you're writing are really great and like interesting, and people would like them, and I can help you kind of realize that. I mean, I was, you know, working, just recording in Logic and doing demos as best I could, right? And he was gonna, you know, he took me to Nashville, and we recorded some there. We recorded some stuff in upstate New York, where I'm from. We worked, you know, it kind of, as we were working on all these songs, I had moved here, and I was working here on those songs. So there was that version of it. Very much not really knowing my way around production software, and not really knowing how to program sounds or work with MIDI too much. Didn't really know too much about synthesizers and piano sounds and all of the like software instrument knowledge that I have now. I didn't know any of that. So my music was very much in the hands of this person, and it was great, and it was a learning experience, and it was kind of everything that I would have learned had I gone to school for, you know, music production or song recording. I don't really know. You know what I mean? I put some stuff out, and it was cool, and all the while I'm building my social media following and doing some stuff on Facebook, doing some stuff on Instagram. You know, this was all kind of came to a head in 2015, right? This is what I was doing this time in 2015. And the music came out, and I was happy with it, but there was just a little bit of a disconnect between my vision for the music and this producer's vision for the music. And it was all good. And I love this dude, great guy, but it was just time for the next thing, whatever that was. I knew that the music I was making wasn't ultimately what I wanted to be creating. And I knew that I had to take ownership of some different things that I was kind of delegating to producers and instrumentalists and all that stuff. So then I kind of started, meeting some more people in town here, and a lot of the people who I still work with today, and just saying yes to everything. Writing, taking sessions as a writer, taking sessions as a guitar player, taking, anything I could do to just immerse myself in creativity and music making, whatever it was. I just said yes. And I'm frankly still in that place. I mean, let's be honest. We've never met. You hit me up on social media. You're like, hey, do you want to hang out and talk about music? And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? You could be a serial killer for all I know and come over with a machete, but I'll invite you into my home. Like, this is the world we live in. But the point is, you just start saying yes, and you put yourself out there. I played a gig last night that was very unconventional. I literally DI'd my guitar, used my computer as an amp, totally unconventional, but it was so dope, and we had so much fun, and played for a crowd of people that I would never get to play for just playing a gig at Rockwood. I love Rockwood. That's not a slight at them, but just getting in different places and just kind of saying yes. And that's the mode I've been in. And part of that has also been just learning and growing and being oh, I like what this person does. Let me implement that. Okay, I got to learn how to make beats, and I got to learn about sampling, and I got to learn about, splice and all of these different resources that are available to musicians that it didn't even occur to me that all this stuff was out there. So it's just been very much a learning process and not being afraid to share as I'm learning. So that process has been, there was a period of throwing a bunch of paint at the wall and seeing what it looked like, and realizing that, okay, I like some aspects of this picture, but I don't like others. And when I got that clarity, I decided I was going to wipe the slate clean, completely start over and move all the way in this direction. One of the artists that I write music with is an artist named Rebecca Jordan, and she's fantastic. She has done countless work. You can look her up. Humongous writer in the industry. Yeah. And we've just become really, really good friends. And right in January, I put up my first single is The New Me, coming out, 2018. And I was writing, I redid my website, redid everything, There was some language in my bio that was I wasn't giving myself the permission to call myself a music producer at this point, because I was well, I only have one song that I've produced out. I can't. I have no ground to stand on. And she was like, you're a music producer. You are.
Just own it.
Yeah. And listen, I you hear Gary Vee talk about people these self-proclaimed life coaches that are 17 years old. And it's okay, don't go that far. Don't be I'm, this great, humility is so important. And sometimes I think we can be a little too humble to the point where we're well, because I don't have the same credentials as this person, therefore I am not allowed to use the same title. When in reality, if you're putting in the work and you're sharing your ideas, and there's stuff out in the world that you've created, then own the title, right? So the short answer is, I've been doing this version for, call it a year and a half, what I'm doing right now, producing my own music. But I was able to cover a lot of ground quickly in the production world, because since I've been writing songs, which has been 10 years plus at this point, I have always used Logic, and before that, GarageBand, a little bit of Ableton, Pro Tools. I've always worked within these ecosystems, and I've always used those. I always saw that as the way to get my ideas down, and I always wrote songs with okay, maybe I wasn't going to be the guy to play bass or play the horn parts or play whatever, but I always expressed myself that way and expressed myself with a general idea of what I wanted the whole track to sound like, which is, in very simple terms, what a producer does. You have the vision for the whole track, and you have that kind of foresight to know that, okay, this is how this is all going to piece together.
Being able to translate what's in your head to
exactly, and that's as I try to get better at that. That is one of the hardest things to figure out how to do.
For sure, that is something I know a lot of people struggle with it. It's only a few that can translate 100% what they do, what they're thinking, onto what they're doing, and that's what separates, the amazing artists from artists that are still starting out. They're still trying to figure it out. So what would you say? You said beginning of 2018 you had this refresher. So what now would you say is like an average day for you, like getting up, doing what you do? Like what would be an average day?
So I homie's got to pay the bills. So I have, I do a lot of freelance work, a lot of stuff with social media, graphic design, video design, some music stuff. Last night I was a freelance musician, you know what I mean? So that I think is an important thing about what I do, because a lot of people look at me online and they're like, oh, he's a full-time musician. You don't get to do that a lot. In a lot of cases, and that's really okay. When I introduce myself to people and they're like, what do you do? I don't say, oh, I'm a freelancer. I say, I'm a songwriter. I produce music. I do all this stuff. This idea of like career, I think messes with our psyche a little bit. This 2018 version of like, oh, I have to have a career and it's one thing and that's it. I do a lot of different things. I'm really, really trying to be an early riser and really just kind of start my day with something positive: gratitude, meditation, morning pages, prayer, all of that stuff. Some days I get up and it's 6:30 and I sit in the chair out in my living room and I watch garbage YouTube videos because I'm just like not really with it. But in my best day, I get up and, I do all of these kind of just personal development sort of things. Like, let me set myself up for the best day possible, right? And it's like they always say, like, those little tiny disciplines in the first half of your day really determine the trajectory of your day. And I totally believe in that. Things that I 100% do every day, I'm always working on something social media related. So whether that's Instagram, YouTube, whatever, I take that super seriously. Like I schedule it out. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that is so important. Once upon a time, you had to have a hit record to get an endorsement deal. Now, if you create really great content and you can also play, and you can be like smaller and still get an endorsement. I got an endorsement deal this year with D'Angelico. I'm one of their artists, right? Like, if this was 20 years ago, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, they wouldn't have endorsed me. Like, I have one single out right now, but they see the content that I create, and they see the community that I'm building, and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll partner with this guy. Beyond that, writing is a huge part of my day, whether I'm working on a new idea or working on mixing a song or working on something to pitch to another artist or whatever. Like, that is, I can't really say too much about what's going on in that aspect of what I'm doing, but a lot of what I'm doing in this season is not only working on my own music, but also working on music with other artists and trying to help artists who were in a similar position that I was in, a few years ago, where I didn't know necessarily how to translate all of the things that were in my head out into a mix or a recording or a production. I can do that now for people. That's a different kind of creative process, because your name isn't on it the same way that it's on your own music. So I could go and I can work with an artist and I can be like, hey, here's my idea. And they're like, I hate that. It's garbage. It's like, okay, doesn't matter. I have no emotional attachment to this because I'm just here to create with you. You know what I mean? And it's really freeing. Obviously, you want to do your best work, but, I have for years been backlogging a catalog of song ideas that sometimes I'm like, hey, maybe this will be a song for me. And other times it's like, this isn't for me, but this is cool, and maybe somebody else will want to take this to the finish line. You know what I mean? So just creating daily, always, whether it's content on social media or writing a new song or working on a current song or something. It's like anything else. The more that you are exercising those creative muscles, the more consistently you can have good ideas come out of you. Do you know what I mean? And also having the freedom to just know that, like, some days ideas are going to suck, and that's okay. The point is you showed up and you did your work for the day. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned that you played piano, you've played guitar, you've, entered this realm of producing where you've done a little bit of everything. What would you say is your main instrument? Like your
guitar, for sure.
Guitar.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And even how long have you been playing that for?
There is a distinction between when I picked up the guitar for the first time and when I actually started deliberately practicing the instrument and taking it seriously. And I think I have been deliberately practicing and taking it seriously for probably 9-10 years.
Okay. And what was it that, I guess, inspired you to officially like take it seriously, to be like, oh, this is the instrument that I want to spend time in getting better at?
Well, because I sucked, and I knew that if I wanted to suck less, I needed to put some hours in on the instrument. But in reality, kind of a really interesting thing that happened, I went to college with an acoustic guitar, and I think I had an electric, but it was like a really not great starter electric guitar. Not like a baby size, but just
That's your basic.
Yeah, the first electric guitar your parents get you when they're like, okay, we'll see if you actually play this a month from now. That was the electric guitar. So I had one of each. And in the band that I was playing in, I played acoustic guitar, and we had a separate guy to play electric. After our first year of school, he transferred. I don't know what their recollection would be. My recollection was, okay, if we need an electric player, I'm going to be the guy. Because I would dabble, every once in a while. On stage, I'd play acoustic for 5 songs, maybe electric for 3, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, let's just do this. I want to do it. I'm afraid of it because being the electric guitarist in the band, that is the role, right? Yeah. That's the role.
The dream role.
Exactly. I mean, you could play acoustic and just move a capo around and get by for days with 4 chords and you're good. Yeah. 1, 5, 4, and 6 and you're good. You don't need much else. You can pretty much make any cover song happen with those chords. So,
exactly.
But I just remember yep, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it happen. And I already knew my way around the guitar, so it wasn't bad. But when I really started playing the electric guitar, it was just everything opened up. I was like, oh, yeah, this is all right. I mean, listen, had you come over, we're looking at my guitar rack over here. Had you come over literally a month ago, that was just electric guitars. It was so bad that I was like, I've got to get some acoustics in here just because you need them for recording if nothing else. But I'm obsessed, man. I mean, there are so many dudes on the internet that can play me under the table, but I don't even care. I love it. I love what I can do on the instrument. Yeah, it gets better every time you pick it up. It gets better every time you tackle something new and try to learn a new song. There are moments in my life that are defined by a yes or no choice. And that was one of those things that I said yes to. And I'm just, oh my God, I can't imagine myself without the electric guitar. You know what I mean? Being an electric player has made me love the acoustic guitar so much more. And it's almost like I can do so much more on the acoustic guitar now that I play the electric guitar. But
helps you appreciate both instruments.
Yeah. Yep.
So what who or what would you say is your biggest influence, both in guitar playing and producing?
Wow, that's so loaded.
Well, just pick your top 3 or first 3 that come.
Well, everybody under the age of 40 loves John Mayer. I would say he's not the only current guitar god, but he's like, and there's this whole new class of like shred heads that are coming through that are probably gonna like really redefine a lot of things. But he's like the one dude who has reached the same level of stardom that like Clapton and George Harrison and Pete Townsend reached. You know what I mean? Like I think Derek Trucks maybe is the best player right now, but he's not the household name that John Mayer is, right? Yeah. I'd be lying if I tried to sit here and be like, oh yeah, John Mayer, he's all right. Like, no, yeah, of course John Mayer. But really, I grew up like Pete Townsend, and you guys can't really see, but he's right here on my wall. He was my favorite player that I grew up listening to. You know what I mean? He just who he is, not just as a guitarist, but just his attitude, him as a songwriter, as a producer. I just like I could watch documentaries on the Who and Pete Townsend forever. I just think he's so great. I love Joe Walsh too. I was a big Eagles fan growing up. Who else? I love like all of like the contemporary dudes too, the Todd Pritchards and the Tom Mishes and Isaiah Sharkey and all of these dudes who are kind of like reinventing neo soul guitar. And the cool thing about neo soul is like it's all of my favorite things. It's R&B, it's soul, it's funk, it's hip hop. It's like all of like the best things in my opinion that music has to offer. Maybe just missing a little bit of reggae, but you could throw some in if you want it, because I think reggae is so cool. It's like you can't be in a bad mood listening to reggae. You know what I mean? Even songs that are like about depressing themes, you're like, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I love all those guys and just friends of mine even today. My friend Reese Gilchrist and Sam Blakelock and all these guys who are just like literally my friends that I look up to as guitar players. You have potential connection to like guitar idols today. Like there's dudes just sharing their ideas on the internet that are just killing it. And they're so talented and you can learn so much just from watching their videos. So that's like the most 2018 thing to say. But, you know, I gave a little bit of 2018, a little bit of like early 2000s and a little bit of like 70s and 80s, I guess, if you count the 80s stuff of The Who. But I know guitarists less by, you know, in the funk and disco genre, but obviously Nile Rodgers is amazing. I steal from him all the time. But really nowadays, more than anything, I am like learning from just playing along with like records that I really like, just sitting and trying to transcribe parts and trying to figure out what they were doing without looking up a YouTube tutorial, just listening and trying to translate what I'm hearing to what I'm playing. That's, I think, I've always done that to some extent, but like really having the discipline to say like, I'm not going to look up the tab and I'm just going to try to figure this out. I don't know. It just, for me, it connects it differently in my memory. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So in terms of producers that I really look up to, I've really learned a lot from just these like famous producers who make YouTube videos and stuff like that. Like Greg Wells, Chris Lord-Alge, guys like that. I love all this Aquarian stuff, that like Dilla and Questlove and D'Angelo, everything that came out of that like early 2000s Electric Lady studio stuff. Like I love all that. Erykah Badu, Slum Village, all that stuff. And just like guys today, like I love Pomo, I love Kaytranada. Who else do I really like? Thundercat, obviously. Like those are all the guys that I'm listening to and I'm like, okay, what are they doing? You know what I mean? Pomo is probably my favorite dude making stuff now. Like everything he puts out, I'm like, yeah, this is dope. Even more like instrumentalist producers and songwriter producers, like Tom Mish's productions are dope. FKJ, French Kiwi Juice, he's dope. Like I'll listen to specific producers like that, but at the same time, like just anything that I find and dig up, I'm like, oh, okay, let's examine this sonically. Let me see if I can get my drums to sound like that. Let me see if I can, you know, get that delay on my guitar or whatever, like incorporate this little thing. I'm reading that book again, Steal Like an Artist, and it's all about that, just like properly borrowing in a way that like pays homage and pays tribute to the stuff that's gone before you, not in a way where you're like copying, but you're
making it your own.
Exactly. You're incorporating it into kind of your own little musical world and ecosystem. And I just think like that is the most powerful thing. Like we underestimate listening so much because we just want to do. We're like, oh, we're frantic. We've got to like get our song out, get our production out, get on to the next thing. And we're also feverishly, moving from one thing to the next. And it's just like, when's the last time you just, instead of bullshitting on Netflix, sorry for cursing, I don't know if we're allowed to do that, instead of BSing on Netflix for the night or YouTube, which is my vice, like just chilling out and listening to a record or putting a Spotify playlist on and like just listening to a bunch of music you've never heard before and getting inspired, like that is so underrated. So,
and I feel like a lot of big artists that you see now, they always mention that. They're like, oh, I got this specific thing from listening to this song and that triggered whatever. And it's just a domino effect. And it's just
exactly
a lot of people, like you said, just want to do. They kind of forget, wait, let's listen and just see if we can get inspired by it, something else. And I feel like that will help with any, like, I guess, like producer block where like you run out of ideas. That will 100% help with that. Yeah. So you mentioned that you collaborate. You're saying, yes, you're just being very open to opportunities. What would you say is like a process of collaborating with like another artist, or what is your process with collaborating with people?
It totally varies from project to project, person to person. On my own stuff, I've worked with other instrumentalists, I've worked with other songwriters. And with my own stuff, I think my opinion, if your name is on the track, right? If you're the artist who's going to be on the record or whatever, I really think that it's your responsibility to kind of balance between calling the shots and also being open to other people's ideas, because you can go too far in the direction of I'm calling the shots, I'm directing everything, every decision. Well, we're not using that because that wasn't exactly like my idea, etc. So you want to be open, but you also need to stand up for yourself if you're like, I really don't agree with that, and that's okay. The hardest thing about collaborating is finding something that everybody's cool with. And ultimately, if you're the artist on the track or the song or whatever, you have to be the most cool. Because I promise you, I've collaborated and I've finished songs that I was the least cool. I was not cool with it. And what can happen is, in the worst case scenario, which in this case it did, you can get into a studio setting and you've agreed to a song on a project that you just didn't speak up enough about, and you freeze up and you can't deliver the song because you're emotionally disconnected. And that's a really terrible place to be, and it's really hard to dig yourself out of that hole. So when you're the person, like, you've just got to be the director and be open and cool and accommodating and willing to listen and willing to try. I heard somebody say once, I think it was John Mayer, saying, always try stuff. Like, don't say that won't work. You can say that didn't work, but don't say that won't work. Don't shut ideas down before you've even tried them, because they'll surprise you. In a setting where I'm co-writing and I'm just having fun and, hey, me and this songwriter or this instrumentalist or this producer want to get together and just create together, it's just like free flowing, no whatever. It's kind of like creativity in its purest form, just like whatever comes, whatever the sacred muse downloads to us, like that's what we're going to use. And it's just like a free for all for ideas. Like before we started filming this, I was telling you about my setup and how it's just completely designed in a way to allow me to just get any idea down as quick as possible, because I think anybody who's ever had an idea knows how sacred it is, and you've just got to find a way to just get it down somehow. Thank God for voice memos. That's all I got to say, or voice notes rather. But it's just, I mean, the thing about collaborating is it's going to be a little different person to person. I had a really lovely collaborative experience with a band in college, and it took a long time for me to find something, not to find something else that was good, but to find something that worked the way that that did. And frankly, nothing works the way that that did, because each collaboration is a little different. But it's about being willing and open, and those are the key essentials to having a good collaboration. And just like, it's fun. That's why we like music. Have fun. It's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to be like, oh, why can't I get this right? But like, at the heart of it all should be a joy and a willingness to express your emotion and your ideas, right?
What is your favorite part about doing what you do?
I think the more that I'm getting to know myself, because I think that's a process, the more that I'm getting to know myself, the more I just really get joy out of the creative process. So anything, I get the most joy out of creating music, hands down, but I get a very similar joy from putting a video together. My videos obviously have music-related topics or themes or all of that, but when I create content for Instagram or content for YouTube, two very different things. But the moment of sitting with something that you kind of gave life to out of just your own brain, I guess, it's tremendously gratifying, right?
Just accomplishing from the ground up something that you created.
It's just like and again, it's like having some. It's back to what I said earlier. It's like being accepted because you had something to give, and I think that that's really, really great. But yeah, I think just my favorite thing is the creative process in general. I love starting with a blank canvas. I love adding to an idea. I really love the process. What I don't like is like having to go out and promote. Maybe that's just like a 2018 thing, but it's like everybody on the internet is asking people to go watch their video or listen to their song or whatever. And I'm fortunate to have supporters and a following, a growing following, albeit, a work in progress following, but that's a great thing. And just saying like, hey, whoever wants this, whoever is willing to give this a chance, go for it. I don't want to really promote it. You know what I mean? But you've got to some extent, but I think the real joy comes from just being like, hey, I did this, and ultimately at the end of the day, if nobody really likes it, that's okay. And maybe I can take something from that lack of response and grow from it. But ultimately at the end of the day, this is about creating and being kind of deliberate with your artistry and just sharing ideas and trying to give something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So with, I guess, that in mind, what would you say, out of all the people you've collaborated with, all the stuff you've done in the past years, what would you say, like right now, what was the favorite, like your favorite project that you've worked on that you got the most like, oh yes, this?
I really am excited about the music that is coming out in the very near future. I'm really excited about that. It finally is something that I feel like I'm sharing that feels totally me, totally authentic, something that I not only collaborated with great people, but also took the ownership that I felt like I've been needing to take for a while, of just like, all right, you're producing. All right, you're going to just make it happen. You know what I mean? It's a tall order, but I think it's, if you feel that calling, you've just got to pursue it.
All right. I guess just wrap it up. What advice would you give to people that see what you do on social media, like see what you're doing? What advice would you give them if they were like, oh, I want to do that? Like, what would you say as like a, hey?
Yeah, I would just say, get ready to do the work, to make even the slightest impact and to kind of get people's attention on what you're doing. Because ultimately, like, it is an attention game. We were talking about that earlier. It's just like the information era, the social media era. I mean, everybody's competing. Not in a malicious way, but there's only so much attention out there. You've just got to keep showing up. You've got to show up when it's hard. You've got to show up when you're getting kicked while you're down. You've got to show up when, months and even a year sometimes goes by and you feel like you haven't made any progress. If you really believe in it and you really think that you have something to share with people that's of value, keep showing up and do the work. Filter everything in your life through your dream. And by that I mean, it's Friday night. You could stay home, work on music, or you could go out drinking with your friends. What are you doing? Okay, if there's 4 Fridays in a month and you go out drinking for all 4 of them, I'm not telling you to give up your social life. I'm just saying, like, your priorities have to line up with the expectations that you have of your dream. So if you have big dreams, you've got to make big sacrifices. And it's tough because your friends will stop calling you. And your circle will get smaller and smaller, and people won't get it. They won't get it for a long time. And you'll show up to, a holiday party at Christmas, and your distant relatives are asking you, so what exactly is it that you do? Okay, yeah, but how do you make a living? You will live in a state for a little while of, it doesn't make sense now, but it will someday. And it's tough to get out of bed sometimes when that's your reality. And you're not there yet, and you don't have much ground to stand on, but you know that you can get there. And yeah, maybe you don't know how, but you know that you can do it. Just keep betting on yourself and keep doing the work and keep taking chances and keep putting yourself out there even though it's tough. Keep saying yes to opportunities even though I don't really know if this is the right gig for me to take, but whatever. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to take this cruise ship gig. I'm going to go take this strange, gig with this artist that doesn't make sense for us to be playing together, but who cares? I like this person and we're going to do it. You just keep saying yes, because a lot of times nothing will come from it but the experience itself. But I know that all of the good things that have come and kind of the career shaping things that have come for me were because I said yes to something that didn't make sense in that moment. And because I took that gig, or I walked up to that person after their show and said, hey, what's up? This is who I am. I really liked the set you just played. You just never know. You have to be willing and outgoing, and not so outgoing that people are like, oh man, is this person okay? Or, I don't know that I want to be alone with them. What's going on? But intention is so huge. And I could sit here for the next, 2 days and talk to you about the power of intention and the power of just sticking it out. But that's it. I mean, I said today on Instagram, the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to go is the work and the intention, really. And I know that there's nothing in what I just said that's implementable. You know what I mean? It's all very theoretical, right? Okay, well, if you do this, that's the bigger picture. That's the kind of heart posture, I guess, you need to have to really make it. And straight up, I look at Shawn Mendes, for example, isn't he a dude you want to root for? Isn't he the guy that you're so happy to see that he's just killing it? Because he's so great and nice and talented and kind. And if you have all of those things about you, people will want to root for you too. And okay, maybe you're up for a gig or a song placement or whatever, I don't know, up against somebody that maybe has better chops than you, but they're not as outgoing and they're not as friendly and they're not as kind. Those things will always take you that extra mile. Just being a good dude or being a good lady, that's sometimes all it takes to just give you that little extra. So, seems simple enough, but being disciplined and being deliberate and being consistent with all of that is the tough part.
Well, that's all the questions I have.
Well,
thank you,
man.
Thanks for allowing me to question you and
my pleasure.
Everything, allowing me to come in here.
Yeah, man.
Trusting I didn't have a machete in my bag.
I know, right? It was. We were a little nervous, but no, man. It's very humbling, and I'm honored to just have somebody who found me on the internet say, hey, this guy's doing something cool enough for me to talk to him about it. So thank you. I appreciate it.